So as you guys are already aware of basics of HTML and some sort of CSS selectors, which we discussed yesterday and day before yesterday. And today's agenda is all about, I would like to explain about how are we going to create a select a properties and what is the use of a properties. And selection, yesterday we already had a complete discussion, and I also given a list of selectors which are there in CSS. For reference, let me open inside a CSS the concepts of CSS, that this is what, how are we going to style. Guys, in the process of here, there are three ways that we can style. Let me see here. Inline CSS. Inline CSS. Internal CSS. Next, second way is internal CSS. And third way is the external CSS. I already given examples for all these three. In general, in real time, recommended way is external CSS. Why? What is the purpose of going for external CSS? Why can't we go for inline and internal CSS? I'll tell you. Inline, the maintenance, in case if you guys would like to add some sort of properties again for multiple elements, inline is not a right solution. The same way internal also not a right solution. This inline and internal will not allow us to reuse of CSS properties to the certain elements. That is where external CSS is important one, which is a recommended one, wherein you can create all the CSS roles and each rule can be reused in multiple pages. The code reusability, optimizing a CSS, this all comes under external CSS. But even sometimes we may have to use inline. Worst scenarios, we may have to use inline internal. Best scenarios, always you have to go for external. Next, guys, listen carefully. The major concepts of, if you ask me, what is CSS? It is a styling of an element. What are all the main concepts? What are the main concepts of CSS? If you guys ask me, then the first concept is selectors. Selectors are playing very important role, my dear friends. Once the selectors are done, the second is properties. However, selectors are helping a developer to select an element to apply the styles. When you are planning to apply a styles, properties are playing very important role. So now let me list out important properties which we are going to use in real time during mobile application creation or web application creation. Even mobile, web and desktop, for everywhere the presentation part is very important. Now guys, first let me go for box model. In CSS, this is very important. Under box model, there are three major properties comes into picture. Border. In case, if we wanted to give a border for an element, why do we create a border? To set the limitations of an element. How are we going to set a border using border property? Border is a property, then followed by a colon, space, and 1 px. Border width, solid, border style, and red is a color. Guys, listen carefully. I just used a shorthand property of a border. Even this border is divided into multiple individual properties. Guys, before stepping into this properties, everybody has to understand one thing. Let me draw that, and guys, you must have to remember this clockwise direction. This one simple small diagram that I'm planning to explain. Please try to understand this. This is top. This is right. Now this is bottom. This is called as left. Now always when we are planning to select some sort of property values, make sure that you should remember this diagram. It has to start from top, then it should move to right, then it should go to bottom and left. Top, right, bottom, left. Guys, here even if you come back this border 1px, the border is a shorthand property, my dear friends. Now here the 1 pixel, this is again divided into, you can even see here, border width, border hyphen width. One pixels. Similarly, this is border style. Border hyphen style. Okay, solid. Okay, next, what I'm trying to explain, even the last one says border color. So instead of giving a three different properties altogether, we are just giving a small shorthand property, so that what happens, this shorthand property always, this is optimized one. So instead of using three individual properties, we are using shorthand properties, my dear friends. Even this border width again divided into four types. One is top width, border hyphen, top hyphen width. Similarly, right width and bottom width, then left width. This is how even the width also subdivided into four parts. Now instead of using individual properties, we are relying on shorthand property. That is one of the important points that every CSS developer should understand. We should not use individual properties always. We have to use shorthand properties in order to optimize the code. Same way, similarly, when you are talking about a border style, now solid is a one value that I give. Instead of going for a solid, we can use border style none. None means some items by default there is a border. If you don't want to display the border for those elements, if you want to make it none, then border style none. Among these three values, 1 pixel, this border width is mandatory, border style is mandatory. Even this border color, it is not mandatory. If you are not giving a border color, what happens? It will try to take the text color. If the text color is red, automatically border color is also red. If the text is gold, border width also gold color. Here, the important point to remember is when you are using a shorthand property of border, you must have to give width and style and red. The color can be optional. If you wanted to give a color also for your border, then you must have to go for color property. Now guys, here individually, if you ask me, next even the border style also, let me explain what I am trying to explain. Border style. However, border width, border hyphen width is divided into again four partitions. Who are they? Border, top, so my pen is not working yet properly, so let me close this. Now this width is also divided into four types. One is border top width, border right width, border bottom width and border left width. So you should always remember this clockwise direction. This diagram is very important for you guys to understand. Similarly, border style also subdivided into 4 types. Border style. Here, border top style. Do not try to go for left, top, right, bottom. No, we should always start with the top. Guys, listen carefully. Border top style. You can give either solid. Solid is a value. Either you can give solid or none, or you can also give double 2 lines if you wanted to give as a border, or if you wanted to give dashed or dotted as a border, then different values that we can give. Same way, border style, however, it is divided into 4 sub properties. Even border color also divided into 4 sub properties. Who are they? Border top color, border right color, border bottom color, border left color. So even border itself, instead of giving all these properties, individual properties are going to increase the lines of code. To avoid that lines of code, so being a developer, we should always use a Saturn property. Don't even think much about these guys. These all are self-explanatory. It is very simple to understand. Next, let me clear this all the diagrams. Next, guys, under box model, however, border is also one of the property. Next, what I'm planning to explain, let me explain about other properties who are comes under box model. Next, padding. Next, margin. These 3 properties comes under box model. Even the border, under the border, there is one more property called border radius. So if you want to create a curve borders, if you guys wanted to create a curve borders, then we have to go for border radius, and the possible value is either you can give pixels, positive integer, and pixels is a unit of measure, or you can give positive integer and percentage also as a unit of measure. This is how we must have to use this border and border. See, border, let me give one example for all these 3 guys under box model. Let me take an example about .html which I created yesterday. Guys, listen carefully. I wanted to give a border for an element. Under footer, let me select this h6 and I wanted to give a border for this h6. If that is the case, before applying a properties, we should be familiar with the selectors. Since yesterday we had a discussion around 9 varieties of selectors. Out of 9, whichever the selector that is feasible for you, please try to pick that one. Guys, since my intention is to select h6 who is inside a footer, then let me go back to the external CSS and I am going to make the changes in that file. So footer, this is a tag name. I'm selecting footer space h6. When we are giving space between 2 different selectors, that is called descendant selector. Here rightmost element is our target element. Who is the rightmost element here? h6 is the rightmost element. I'm targeting h6 who is under footer. Then it will go back to your browser in wherever inside a body, wherever it identifies when the page gets loaded in the page, wherever it identifies h6 who is under a footer, that element is going to select. Once the selection is done, then we must have to go for a properties to style it. Now border is a property which I am planning to explain here. Border 1px, this is width, solid. Now guys, listen, I haven't declared color. If I'm not declaring a color, how are we going to display? So to explain this file, as usual, go back to the HTML, right click and open in a browser. This HTML is going to open in a browser, and the browser is going to give an output. Now, when you are going back to your footer, guys, listen, wherever H6 is there, even many places I have duplicated H6. That's why it identifies H6 in 4 varieties of places, and all 4 H6 border 1px solid red. Though I haven't declared my color, the text color is taken it as a border color. And one more interesting thing that I would like to explain. For example, I'm changing the text color. Default text color I gave red. Now I'm changing it to, let me go for a gold color. If I use gold color for that H6 and try to observe, my dear friend, even you can see I specified gold color only for a text. But even though the gold color text is applied for a border as well. The gold color text is applied for a border. Now here, whatever the explanation which I gave, so you must have to compare that. Here, when we are giving a shorthand property to a border, the width and style is mandatory, the color is not mandatory. In case sometimes I don't want my border color also as text color. In such cases, I can go for my own color. I'm just giving gray color hexadecimal color code. Now you can see my text color is still, you can even find out here, organization text color is gold color and the border of that particular element is gray color. Guys, when we are talking about a color, there are 3 or 4 ways that we can define a colors. Either predefined colors, which is rainbow colors, or we can also go for hexadecimal color codes. Hexadecimal color codes are always starts with hash followed by hexadecimal code. Now you can also ask a question, how do we know which color is this? How are we going to remember hexadecimal color codes? Guys, that is none of our business. Generally, in the software companies, the development phase comes under 3rd phase. Prior to that, designers' work is to give all the design style guide to a development team. In case, while developing a presentation part of an application using Angular or HTML, CSS, JavaScript or anything, for developers, the designers has to give all the assets and the designers has to give what sort of font size, what is the font color, what sort of images that's supposed to use. Everything, every information is going to share by our designers. If the company is not, following the process, if the company is not following the software development process, what happens? It will be tough for a company. Just give me 1 minute. Okay, so that is how you must have to decide sort of color. You need not to worry about that colors and font images and images. All that can be given by our designing team. Okay, but here, since this is a part of learning, I'm just explaining you guys, when we are talking about a color, either a border color or it might be a background color, or it might be a text color, or it might be a shadow color, it might be text shadow or border shadow or box shadow. Wherever the color involves, there are 3 varieties of values that we can give. Either predefined color codes, that is rainbow colors, red, green, blue, violet, something like that, predefined. Or we can go for hexadecimal. Hexadecimal color codes always starts with hash followed by a color code. Or RGB. RGB one function is there in CSS. We can also give red RGB. RGB stands for red, blue, and green. And I will try to explain about the color property when I am talking about color in detail. You will get to know what is RGB, what is RGBA, what is HSL and HSLA. These are the advanced concepts of CSS. Now here, you guys try to understand. I just gave border 1px solid gray color. Now 1 pixel border is applied all four sides, and solid is also applied all four sides. Even the gray color is also applied in all four sides. That's all, my dear friends. If you go back to your browser and right click on your element, inspect an element and right click. Now developer tool is going to open. In the developer tool, you will be able to see whatever the properties that you applied. You could see all the properties in the right hand side of your browser inside the developer tool. You see in the left hand side, this is called as document object model, which is created on the fly by a browser. And right hand side, you can see that styles, whatever the CSS that you have applied, you could able to see all the styles in the right hand side of your developer tool. And computed, you can also see all the computed values with respect to your element, all the computed values. Guys, listen, this diagram explains what is box model is all about. This is box model. A box model is nothing but which is going to describe how the HTML elements are rendering into a web page. Generally, HTML elements are two types, inline or block level. When we are using an inline or block level into a web page, how this web elements are rendering in a web page, how are we going to give a border, how are we going to give a gap between elements, how are we going to give a gap within the element. If you are planning to give a gap within the element, then padding is the right property. If you are planning to give a gap between elements, I mean to say outside of an element, that is margin is an example. Or if you wanted to give border to element, border. See, I just gave border, and you can see here there is no gap between each one of the element. Now if I wanted to give a gap between elements, then margin is a property that I supposed to use. Now on each H6 which is inside a footer, my plan is to give margin 4 side, my dear friends. Let me give 10 pixels. When I give 10 pixels margin, what happens? Top right, bottom left, all four sides, the information is going to display. Even this is also shorthand property of a margin. If you go on the web page, you can easily see that there is, and on H6 if you try to see, there's light orange color on H over of H6, and you could also see here all four sides whatever the margin that I applied. So right from top, right, bottom, left, you can even see that all four sides the 10 10 10 10 is applied. That makes sense? This is what margin is for, giving a space between elements. Padding is for giving a space within the element. Now let me go for within the element. Now that border and the text which is inside an element, those guys are very close to each other. Now this looks obvious and it is not user friendly. The user experience point of view, this is not looking so great. If I would like to give a gap within that element, then padding plays very important role. However, margin 10 pixels I gave to increase the space outside. Same way, whatever the pixels that I give, padding 10 pixels also I gave. Guys, listen carefully. The moment when I give a padding 10 pixels, now within the element from a border to a context, you can even see there is a space is increased. Now the breathing space is also very, very important when you are working on social distance. Everyone are aware of it. And what is the point of going for social distance? To avoid this virus spread. The same way, when you are designing a web page, make sure that when you are rendering an elements inside a web page, we should also maintain a decent gap between elements. If you maintain a gap and it could be possible for a developer to place an element in a beautiful way. As long as if the elements renders in a beautiful way, users will be happy. If user is happy, of course, they are going to give a business. The ultimate goal of this development, end of the day, we have to make our website more beautiful. So CSS properties allow us to make our HTML elements more beautiful. Next, I'll tell you what is the importance of going for styling. And I hope many people are aware. Even the makeup plays very important role. Even the bad guy, it is bad in terms of what we can say personality. If the person is looks ugly, we can even that is the power of makeup. Same it happens even in the web development when you are creating pages. CSS is very important. If you are applying CSS properties properly, that too colors, right properties for a right element. That is where you people have to understand. Generally, designers are going to build a prototype of a web page. Developers are going to come back in the development. The front-end developer's duty is to collect the design which was given by a designer and try to mimic the same by using HTML and CSS, JavaScript to convert that graphical user interface GUI based design into a template actual page. That is where UI developers. Now this course is completely UI developers role. Even if you are learning, there is also part of UI development. That's why this is important. Out of all properties, I wanted to give them into multiple categories. I would like to give them an example so that they understand and what is their purpose. Now, box model. Let me wind up this box model properties. A box. Generally, what do you mean by a box? A box consists of an element, and if you are wrapping all the element into a single box or single wrapper, I can call it as a box. Now, if I wanted to give a border, margin, padding, these three comes under box model. So now the exercise border is 1px solid gray color I gave. Even though the corners, guys, listen carefully. When you come back, even this is a top left corner. This is for every element. This is a top left corner. This is known as top right corner. This is bottom right corner, and this is bottom left corner. Even all these corners are sharp borders. You can see this is also sharp border. This is also sharp. This is also sharp. Even this is also sharp. By using border radius, so if you don't want the sharp borders, I want border, for example, for an element, smooth borders I need, like that. If I'm planning to go for a smooth borders, all four sides, that is where border radius comes into picture. I hope you understand. Now, border radius is also a part of model that I. Next, let's move on to another concept. What are the other properties are there? Let's move on. Next, dimension properties. So dimension is all about width and height. So if you are planning to set a width of an element and width, under width, so width also has minimum width, min hyphen width, and max hyphen width. Next property is height property. Under height again, so min height is there, max height is there. These all guys are self-explanatory. I don't want to talk these guys clearly, guys, because any LKG guy can easily understand what is min, what is max. I hope you understand. Now, the width property, when you are planning to set a a certain width for an element and certain height for an element. Now you can even pick up this width and height, or if you guys wanted to set a minimum or maximum width, you can go for individual properties, that min and max also. And here the important note is the unit of measure. Either you can go for a pixels or you can go for a percentages. The pixels, if you guys are using, that is gonna be a fixed width and fixed height. And if you are using percentages, that will act as a flexible element. So you should always go for, now many cases we are going to use a flexible elements. I'm flexible in the sense, as long as if the page is rendered, in case if it is rendered in a mobile or tablet or maybe a bigger screens, the element size should automatically adjust. If you wanted to write such kind of flexible layout, then you should always go for a percentages as a unit of measure in width. Now height generally we won't even restrict any item height until unless if it is really needed. If you are restricting element height, what happens if the number of elements which are going to increase, automatically the overlapping is going to happen. Okay, so this is all about dimension properties. I'll also because I'm going to give all the list of properties today, and I'll try to pick up all these properties in order to build our application. So let me kindly allow me to complete all the properties now, then we'll try to pick up and use in our real-time project. Okay, next guys, dimension is over. This is only theoretical, then we will come back to a practical little later. Dimension. Next, what we have to do is, right after dimension, let me go for layout related properties. These are the guys which plays very important. Layout. So in CSS, layout is nothing but how are we going to divide your empty page into multiple sections and multiple partitions. HTML will allow us to just divide our empty pages into multiple sections, but if you wanted to place them side by side or place them one by one or beautify them, that is where layout comes into a picture. Now under layout properties, there are three ways that we can create a layout: by using a float property, or by using display flex property, flexbox. This is one of the example, flexbox, or we can also go for grid, CSS grid. These are the important ways that we can create a layout. Out of all these guys, I can say flex or grid, these are the latest way of creating a layout. The float is the older one. Older in the sense 4 or 5 years before, people used to use float to build a layout, but now since float has limitations and some sort of disadvantages, that is where the flexbox and grid system came into your picture. I will also explain about this layout. Now let me just give an example for layout using float and flex. Now grid will try to take it a little later. Why? Because if I keep talking about each one of them, and we cannot even complete it within the allocated time. So that's why let me start giving an example for each. Theoretically, let me finish it, and I'm going to use all of them one by one. Okay, so guys, next what I'm trying to explain, layout. Let us keep that particular information in mind. For creating a layout, we do have three varieties of properties, that is float, flex, and grid, and we'll come back because everywhere when you are creating a web page, all the places we have to use layout concept, either float or flex or grid. And so each one of the differences you will get to know when we are creating a multiple pages. Next comes under positions. In CSS, there are 5 varieties of positions are there: static, relative, absolute, fixed, and sticky. The sticky is the latest one, which is there in CSS3, remaining all others. Now, positions, let me give an overview of what is positions. Generally, positions are helping a developer to place an element across the web page. If you take an example, now let me see. For that, let me give one simple explanation for our positions. Now, I'm just drawing one web page. If you consider this is a page, think that this is one of the web page. Guys, here if I try to place, for example, as a code, if I'm writing H1 code, if high, if I place H1, let me close H1. What happens? Since I placed high, since H1 is a block level element, so when you are executing this in a page, H1 is going to display from top to bottom. This is top portion of a web page. This is a bottom portion of a web page. Guys, always the elements are going to display from top to bottom. Since the first element, second element, if I'm using a paragraph, if I'm using some text or whatever XYZ, if I use, what happens, then right after high is going to print first. Then high is a block level element. It completely blocks the whole row. Next, test is going to display, and test is also blocking a complete row. Now this is how, according to their order, the elements are going to render in a web page from top to bottom direction. In case I don't want the elements are going to display as per their order, I wanted to display the elements according to my own positions, I would Hey Himod, can you see my screen?
No, sir, not yet.
How about now?
Yeah, yes, sir. It's visible.
It's visible. Okay. Okay, next, see, now my drawing is also lost. See guys, let me try to explain again. In a web page, however the order, as per the order, think that, okay, I am putting one element that is high. If it is a block level element, high is also placing in first element, and in case if test, if I am using test as a paragraph, is also placing from top to bottom. The elements are always rendered in a web page when you are executing from top to bottom. This is top position, whereas coming to this one is bottom position. Okay, fine. So, but when it comes to your positions, what positions are going to help? Position will help developer to move web page. You can move anywhere. To say any element, you can even keep moving anywhere in a web page. That is what the positions is all about. But this is a default position. Static position is a default position. Static position is default. Relative position, guys, listen carefully. Relative position is the position which will try to move an element from its current position. The element always moves from its current position. If you are think that okay for relative position, and let me start giving one simple example. Okay, so since positions are important for everybody to understand, let me give an example. I'll try to create a subfield. So inside a CSS only, let me just give positions example, positions dot html, and in that exercise, let me put all the position example. For you to understand positions, I'm just creating one sample exercise. Since positions is a part of CSS, I'm just giving positions. Okay, now as I already said, let me write few elements. So what I'm explaining, h1, hi, I'm just keeping. Then paragraph, I'm just giving hello. For you to understand hello, just simple. And I'm just giving one more h1 or h2, whatever it is. How are you? Since h1, paragraph, and h1, these guys are a block level element. When you are loading this, just listen carefully. And if you execute this in a website, in a browser, nature of display, as we discussed, elements are divided into two types, inline and block level. If it is an inline element, the element is going to render in the same row. If it is a block level element, it is going to display in a new row, because block level elements always block the entire row. Now, according to the display order inside our web page, wherever we created, h1p, h1. So h1 hi, next hello, how are you is printing. Now let me close this h1 as well. But using a positions, how I am going to move an element from one place to another place across my web page. If you see, whatever the visible space here, that is my web page. Now, if I want to move this web page web element from this particular portion, hi, I would like to keep hi at the center of my web page. So if I want to do that, also playing very important. Go for style, internal CSS I am writing for this exercise. Usually when you are working on project, you go for external, but in order to understand the examples, it's okay if you are using internal or inline. Now I want to select h1, but you know there are two h1s are there. That is where you must have to go for a right task. If I use h1, what happens? This line number 6, which is going to search for an element inside a body. Since two h1s are there, two of them are going to select. And if I try to apply a properties, then those properties are going to impact on two elements, since the selection identifies two elements inside a body. But here, as per our example, I don't want to select a second h1. I would like to select only first h1. I wanted to move my first h1 across my page. If that is the case, then you should also be familiar with the proper selectors. Guys, in such scenarios, either if I want to select this, either I can go for a class, separate class, or I can also go for separate ID. That is up to you. So this is a class. I'm just giving my class name is hi. Instead of giving h1, now I would like to select an element whose class is hi. Guys, that represents class. Hi is a class value. Now this line number 6 says, which is going to select an element whose class is equal to hi, whose class value is equal to hi. It will go back to your body. It started identifying an element whose class is hi. Then in our case, the line number 10 h1 has class hi, but line number 12 h1 does not contain class hi. That's why only that class. Next, what we have to do now, guys, listen carefully. I'm just giving a position. By default position for all the elements, whoever is rendered inside a web page, static. Now I am just giving a relative position. So let me see here, nothing is changed. Even after giving a relative position, nothing is changed. Then I am moving top 200 pixels. If I use top, right, bottom. Now you see here, as per the flow, the element has to display in the first. But since I have changed that element position from a original position to a new position by using position relative. Now let me give an example here. The relative elements always move from its current position. Earlier current position is here, and it started moving from current position to a new position. Get my point? Now again, if I want to move up 50%, let me go for 50%, and left also I can give 50%. And let us see once we give this information how we are going to display. Now top 50%. See, top, let us always give, when you are giving top, better to go for a pixels, and left you can also go for a percentages. Why? Because guys, listen, now you can see left percentage. But since I give percentage, the element is going outside of a page. That also it is a bad idea. We should always restrict the elements within our page. So if you are displaying an elements outside of a web page, ultimately the elements are going outside. How about now, Himant?
Yeah, in the middle for sometimes it's breaking, sir.
Okay, so is it clear now?
No, sir.
It's not clear.
Now it's clear, sir.
Okay, maybe a network issues, I guess. I don't know. Okay, fine. So now what I'm trying to explain here, guys, when you are planning to move an element across your web page according to the requirements, and you can even still go for a different positions, but position relative moves an element as per from their original position. And when you are talking about positions, you should always think here left 500 pixels. The element started moving. Save this class I. Top 500, left 50. Only left 50 I just gave. So when I go left 50, what happens? This position is relative. Now, basically, the H1 is a block level element. Since it is a block level element, this itself would have been already 100% taken. You can get left 50 cells, it has started moving. The whole 100% element, if started moving 50, then it will become adding a scroll bar. Vertically is okay, but adding a scroll bar horizontally, it is not okay. So that's why being a developer, make sure that you must have to check whether the scroll bar is added vertically or the scroll bar is added horizontally. That is also we must have to check. Next, position relative is over. Then let us come back to your position absolute. Next, what we are going to do, let me explain about position absolute. Absolute elements. There are two scenarios for absolute elements, and however, position relative is moving an element to its current position. Coming to absolute elements will always listen to browser viewport. In one scenario, absolute element is going to listen to a parent. What is that one scenario which is going to listen to the parent? Listen to the report. And you guys have to understand what browser report. Now, browser report is nothing but browser. A top left corner is a browser report corner. Now, the position absolute elements, if they are not placed inside a parent, that you Imod, can you see my screen?
Yeah, yes, sir.
So there is a lot of network issues are happening here. So the Geo has some technical issues, guys. Now everybody is able to see my screen, I guess. Voice is also clear, Imod?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Okay, cool. Now, when we are talking about this particular absolute, so absolute element, there are two conditions are there for absolute element. Let me start giving class. I'm just giving hello. I'm just giving one sample class for paragraph. Also, one more class I'm just giving it for how are you? How are you? Guys, listen carefully. Now, second element, the paragraph I started selecting. P, only one paragraph is there. Either I can select using the tag selector or I can also select using class selector. Okay, so if that is the case, P, then it will select number of P's which are there in a body. How many P's are there here? Since only one paragraph inside my body, we select one paragraph. Now, since I am going to give position absolute, guys, listen carefully. This is a very important, concept which I am explaining today. And when I am going for reloading, you can even come back and see there is some overlapping is happening. Now, why it is overlapping? Now, the moment when you select a P, generally P is a block level element. Paragraph is also block level element. But the moment when we are giving position absolute, the block level element is turned into inline. If you uncheck, the block level element is comes back to original position. But the moment when you guys are giving position absolute, now you have to observe one change. Now the block level element is turned into inline. Next, if you wanted to move an element from a particular position, then use top 100 pixels. Any value, top right, bottom left. These are the four different values that we supposed to give along with your position. Position without top right, bottom left, it won't even move an element. Even top right, bottom left, all these properties will work only for a position other than static. Okay, next top 100 pixels I gave. Guys, listen carefully. Now hello, as per the rule, now according to the element flow, the hello is displaying here. Now after reloading, you see here hello is started changing its position. Now the P, since paragraph is a block level element. So when I gave position absolute, it is started converting into inline, and it is also started listening to your browser viewport. These are the two changes that you must have to see the moment when the element is changed to position absolute. Whereas coming to the position relative will never ever change the display, and it will always moves an elements from its original position. But absolute elements are changing their display feature as well. And also absolute elements will always listen to your browser viewport, but only in one scenario the absolute elements listen to their parent. What is that one scenario? I'll tell you. If the absolute elements are wrapped inside a parent, if the parent is other than static, then absolute elements listen to parent. Remaining all other scenarios, even if the absolute elements wraps inside a parent, if the parent is not other than static, that scenario also it is going to listen to your browser viewport. This is a top left corner of your browser. Or in normal cases, absolute elements are always listen to your browser viewport. This is one of the difference between position absolute and position relative. Next, fixed position, guys. Now let me explain about what is fixed position. I think yesterday few people asked me what. See, now let me come back to my application. So even in this case, when we are scrolling up, you see here, when we are scrolling up, the whole elements is also scrolling up. Now I wanted to keep my headers fixed. So let me use one real-time scenario here. I'm going back to my page, about us page. In the about us page, let me select my header element. Since my whole header element is here, I'm going to select a whole header in external CSS. I'm selecting whole header. How I'm going to select a header? Using tag name. So you guys you should always use selectors properly, my dear friends. Since I already selected a header earlier, let me use the same rule, and here I am going to use position fixed. If I use position fixed, and I am also giving top maybe 0 pixels if I am making it position fixed. Now after reloading, what happens, you see here there is some many changes is happened, and even if you guys are keep moving, my header position is fixed. And this position fixed, along with that I should also give position fixed will also convert that block level element into inline. Then forcefully I supposed to give width 100% for fixed position element in order to occupy the entire row. Guys, listen. Now the moment when I made these changes, now you can see that as long as when I'm moving, my header is fixed to the top. Now this is called as sticky header. This is called as sticky header. Okay. Next, there is one more concept called sticky. Sticky is a combination of both relative and fixed. At certain point of time, the element, by default, the element is relative, and when a certain threshold value meets, if you wanted to change it to convert it to a fixed one, then we are going to use sticky. Sticky is all about CSS 3 concept. You will be able to use sticky also to make it sticky headers, or you can also use fixed also to make it sticky headers. And fixed and sticky has a differences. The sticky is a combination of relative plus fixed. Fixed is only fixed. So that is only the difference. Remaining all same. Okay. Next, this is all about positions. Next, come back. What I'm to this layout, still I haven't touched it. I'll try to touch layout at one separate class. That is very, very important. Next, guys, media queries. First, I'm talking about important ones. Or let me go for background related properties. Under background, either you can also go for a background color, background color. So either single color or multiple colors also you can give as a background color, or we can also set background image as well. We can set color as a background, we can also set image also as a background. So I will also take a couple of examples in order to give complete background. So background color, when we are talking about a color, so color value, either you can give predefined values or hexadecimal values, or we can also go for HSL or HSLA values. Okay, so next, under background image, either you can set single image as a background, or we can also set a multiple images also as a background. So when we started building a couple of pages, we'll also pick up background properties to style. Why do we need a background? Because to style an element more beautifully, we have to use background properties. Next, guys, we should also go for, I mean to say, text and font properties. Text properties. I mean to say text color. Text properties. Maybe color also comes under text property. And text transform. If you wanted to move an element, text transform. Text transform and text. The size, in case if you wanted to increase, that is comes under font. Text style. Text style. Text align. Next, few properties are related to your font. Font properties are also there. I mean to say font size, font variant, font style. So there are many, but I'm just giving important properties which we used to use on daily basis when we are building a. And even wanted and unwanted, many properties are there. Don't even try to learn every property which is not useful for us. It is a time waste. Okay, then text and font properties you can also research in Google, and you can also understand if you wanted to make some color or some sort of font sizes and font variant, font style, then we are going to use these text properties and font properties for changing the text color and text variations. And next, in CSS3, these are the I think these are the main properties that we are going to use in CSS. Apart from this, we also have multiple other properties. Let me go for media queries. Media query. This is very, very important. Media query is not a property, guys. This is something like to achieve responsive web design. This is for responsive web design. This concept is very important. What I am going to do, I'll try to explain about media queries when we are converting your web page into mobile friendly. I mean to say, let me explain about this about.html. If I open about.html inside my browser, what happens? Right click, inspect, and in the developer tool, you can also see that there are different kind of toggle devices on there. Now, the moment this is where you can even check with the different available devices. Now, if you go for a Moto G4 and the width is 100%. Now, you see here, there are some text which is not even visible for end users at all. Understand, guys? Now, in such cases, this is a web page that you have created for to explain about a company, but though you can't even predict that if whether users are loading your page in a Moto G4 or mobile phones or whatever the phones that they are using, we never ever understand. So why? Because we can't even control the users to use a certain device. Users can even use what sort of device which is available for them. Being a company, make sure that our page must be, it has to work well in desktop, even laptops, even mobile phones as well. So that is where, so we have to build our web page responsive to all the gadgets which are available in the market. To keep that in mind, so in order to see now this, in this way, if you are representing a data, what happens, it is completely, the data is invisible. If the users are opening in Moto G4, the data is not properly visible for them. In such cases, we have to write a media query in order to make them understand how are you going to build a web page, how are we going to render the data in a web page in a proper way. So that is called media queries. This is very important concept for a UI developers. This is our real time. So those who are already aware of CSS, you in your academics, I am sure you might not even heard about media queries, because our syllabus is not up to industry standards. We do have the outdated syllabus. We wanted to learn this latest concepts. That is where XLR is providing a latest concepts in the session. Kindly utilize this session. We are also seeing the very less response. That the first day there are many people are watching, and later on the people are not. I think most of the people are coming for an attendance, I guess. By guys, this is a session where we are delivering with high quality. I'm just giving you a quality of education by giving a real-time standards and real-time examples. Kindly utilize this particular session. Now it's almost, we are close to the session, and if you guys have any questions, kindly feel free to ask the questions. And see, within tomorrow we are going to complete some sort of portions, and will be from next week onwards, we are planning to give some sort of assignments on a daily basis. We have created a drive, and we are uploading all the assignments into that drive, and everybody has to complete, and you should also upload those assignments into your drive, and our team is going to validate your assignments. And if you guys are not performing good, if you perform good, and this your team, if you're not performing, that information also comes to your team. And if you people have any question, feel free to ask now. Now we have 15 minutes to go. Is asking about what is position absolute. Guys, again, see, position absolute or position relative or position fixed, everyone are going to help developer to move an element across the page. But position absolute, what it will do, it will try to convert a display nature of an element. If it is a block level, it will immediately convert into inline, and it will start moving an element from its browser top 00. That is a browser viewport. And only in one scenario, the absolute element is going to listen to its parent. What is that one scenario? If the parent is positioned other than static, then the absolute element listen to its parent. Remaining all other cases, the absolute elements is listen to browser viewport. I hope you understand now. Varsha Maidam, did you get the answer? Yes, there is a text glow property, and text shadow effect is also there. Yeah, media queries, I am going to take a live example and I'll explain, guys. Wait for some time. Media queries is not completed yet. Even hybrid application, hybrid mobile applications also need a front-end developers. That is where front-end developers are everywhere. It is important, no matter whether a web application or mobile application or hybrid applications or desktop applications, front-end developers are important. Someone is asking about what is padding and margin. Padding increases the space within the element. Margin increases the space outside of an element. Next, which one is better and easy, React or Angular? Guys, there is no comparisons between these two. If you ask me really, React is built for a different purpose. Angular is built for different purpose. And one more thing, nothing is difficult, nothing is easy. So it's all about our purpose perception. Guys, my sincere advice is, and if you guys are putting efforts, everything is easy. If you're not putting efforts, everything becomes difficult. And there is no, concept in the world which is difficult. The human made is always easy. The God creation is tough. That is what I feel. And so please try to concentrate more on whatever you want to become, because if you learn Angular, React is also easy. If you learn React, Angular is also easy. Both of them are for different purpose that we have created. What if you use header tag name in CSS folder 2 times? See what happens, two times if you use, the CSS is going to, it will try to combine both the selectors and it is going to merge that properties and it are going to apply. Can we align properties instead of position property? No, positions are for different purpose and align property is for different purpose. See, the significance importance of sticky is, guys, first initially you wanted to display your element as relative, but the moment when the user started scrolling, maybe if the scroller reaches to 100 pixels, then you have to convert that header into fixed one. In such cases, that is where one threshold value reaches, then you have to make your element position is fixed. But if the threshold value is not meeting, then you have to keep your element as relative. In such cases, we are going to use Can we explain dynamic web pages in this course? Of course, we are going to explain dynamic web pages, but not in depth. Sure, we are going to explain about responsive web design in the next lecture. Sir, Angular will be started once JavaScript get over. So still, this is a fourth session. You guys have to wait for a few more days. Then we are going to end up with Angular. Angular and React is not same. Angular is completely different and React is something different. So what is pre-tag? See, pre-formatted. Pre-tag, very rare case we are going to use in real time. Pre-tag is all about it is pre-formatted. Yes, explain about text transform property once. Guys, text transform, if you read a property, you could easily understand how you are planning to transform text from one state to another state. I mean to say, if your text is in small letter, if you are planning to display that in a capital letters, that is where we are going to use text transform. Or uppercase letters into smaller case, or smaller case letters into uppercase, or capitalize. That is where we are going to use text transform property. This is going to help a developer to transform a text into uppercase to smaller, smaller case to any case. How to make sliders in CSS? Guys, I'll tell you, we have to write a lot of CSS in order to make sliders. In pure CSS, it is not possible. So again, if you try to use, why? Because the sliders on a time interval, it has to keep moving from one place to one image to another image. So in such cases, we have to use JavaScript. If you use JavaScript, you can easily make a slider, but you can also use CSS, but you have to do a lot more, things in order to create a sliders. See, pre-tag generally, however you wanted to display the text. If you see in HTML, white spaces are ignorable. If you don't want white spaces are going to ignore, then you can even use pre. In between, however, if you are keep giving a multiple spaces, it is going to display the same. I have inspected YouTube web page. There is tag names also totally different. What we are learning now, but in YouTube they have used uglification mechanism. In order to protect their front end code, they have used uglification. So don't ever try to be smart and going to YouTube and copying the code. That won't even help. Font variant, in case if you wanted to display either small caps, small capital letters, that is where font variant comes into a picture. In order to display your text in a small. Sure, we will be sending interview questions also. How to insert icons into our page. So for that, font awesome, or we also have a different third-party plugins, icomo, font awesome, and by using those third-party plugins, that we will be able to include icons. Or you can also ask your designer to give icons, and as by using an image tag, you can also include icons into your web page. Someone is asking about why we supposed to go for Angular. Guys, Angular is for building single page applications, and there is a lot of advantages are there. In case if you are not using Angular to build a web application, and the web application performance is not going to improve. To improve the application performance, we should always go for latest frameworks or libraries which are going to allow developer to improve the performance. And someone is asking about what is the difference between Angular JS and Angular. Guys, Angular JS is a old version which is released in the early 2010 or 2012. Whereas coming to Angular is the latest version, which has a lot of differences now. Angular is a popular one, not Angular JS. Angular JS is built with JavaScript, whereas coming to Angular is completely built with a TypeScript. And Angular has a lot of features compared to Angular JS. Why do we use class name even though we have a tag naming style? See, class name and tag name. Sometimes you see here, let us take an example. I have a division, two divisions are there. If I wanted to give some set of properties for division 1 and another properties for division 2. In such cases, if you are not going for a different two classes, if you are using a single division tag name, those properties are going to impact on 2, but I don't want to impact them on 2. I wanted to write only unique properties for 2 divisions. In such cases, two different classes, two different properties, and we'll be able to use it in many places. What is DD in table tag? DD is nothing but data. It's not DD was TD. DD is there in definition list. Definition data. Yes, of course, we are going to give you this code. We'll try to put it in a drive and people can even access. What is the difference between UI developer and web developer? UI developers works on only front end. Web developers has to work on front end, back end, and database. So please explain dimensions. Dimension manipulation. In case if you want to set width and height of an element, that is where this dimensions comes into your picture. And good evening, sir. What platform are you using? I am using Sublime Text 3, which is an editor. But React is for building only single page application, that to view layer. But Angular is a framework, React is a library. So library has limited features. Framework will have a lot of features. Now, if you ask me, React is also for single page application, then why Angular? It sounds like, even we have a Apple phone and we also have, Vivo phone. Apple has its own features. Vivo also has its own features. Both of them are phone only, but there are a lot of benefits are there for each one of them. Same it applies even when it comes to React and Angular as well. React is just a library, Angular is a framework. Framework and libraries have a totally different concepts. I hope you understand, Mr. Amit. Will we be using Bootstrap? Yes, Bootstrap is also part of this session. Wait for some more time. What is the best editor? Bus, Sublime Text, you can use it, or Notepad++, you can use it, or VS Code also you can use it. Justify content, align items, these are comes under Flexibox. Those guys are layout properties that we are going to discuss tomorrow. Pani Kumar, try to watch tomorrow's session, you will get an answer for this. Animations is also advanced concept of CSS that can also be discussed in subsequent lessons. Guys, can you, sir, can you suggest some reference books? See, reference books. You can go for HTML Bible. There is one Bible is there, HTML Bible. But moreover, try to attend this kind of real-time sessions and you will get more knowledge. Also, W3 Schools is sufficient enough for people to understand basic. What is the difference between JavaScript and TypeScript? JavaScript is loosely coupled language, TypeScript is strict coupled language, and there is a many differences. JavaScript, even TypeScript is a superset of JavaScript. Both of them are for writing a front-end code, but JavaScript, even TypeScript is superset of JavaScript, and completely TypeScript is fully object-oriented, whereas coming to JavaScript is not fully object-oriented, it is partial object-oriented. How can we place a text or image in exact location in a web page? Please explain. By using positions. Either you can use position absolute or you can go for position relative. You can place anywhere, any location in a web page. How to link one page to another page using anchor tags. Anchor tag with H reference. If you are giving a particular path, you will be able to move an element from one place to another place. Sorry, is Angular contains HTML, CSS, Bootstrap code? That's why we are teaching this first. Yes. See, Angular is advanced concepts of UI model. Okay. So if you want to become a UI developer, first you guys have to learn fundamentals. Then you should go for intermediate level. Then you should go for advanced level. Without HTML, CSS, JavaScript, learning Angular is painful. To avoid that painful, that is where we are talking about all these prerequisites. How to create a login box. So using HTML and CSS, we can create a login box. Tables in HTML. So that is nothing difficult. This how to create a tables in HTML. So in case if you people are facing any difficulties or any issues, kindly feel free to reach out to our team, and technical issues or any other issues with respect to the delivery or a content or examples, we are happy to give you a quality of education. Feel free to discuss with our team if you are facing any problems. That's all about today's session, my dear friends. See you tomorrow. Thank you. Thank you so much. Good night. Bye-bye.